king of German mercenaries.
Chapter 129, Arrival of the Caravel. When Marin brought Angela back to Denburg, it was already June. Da Gama was leaving on July 8, so time was very tight. After Columbus and his family arrived on Texel Island, Marin arranged for Columbus's wife and 2 sons to live in Denburg, and arranged for craftsmen to help Columbus and his family build a big house. Seeing that Vasco da Gama was about to leave, Columbus also needed to leave immediately. Columbus had no objection to this. The skills of the great voyage had been deeply engraved in his soul. Moreover, he was now in a very poor state, and only by sailing from Marin could he earn enough money to support his family. Marin assigned 2 Frisian warships with a displacement of about 130 tons to Columbus, but most of the sailors were replaced. Among them, the sailors who were replaced were mainly fishermen under Marin's rule. Bald Aben was the leader of these young sailors who were originally Frisian fishermen. To Marin's delight, not long after he returned to Texel, the caravel he had ordered from Spain and Portugal arrived. The 2 caravels are similar in size, with a displacement of about 180 tons, a length of 27 meters, a width of 8.5 meters, a draft of 2.3 meters, and a sail area of about 372 square meters. Of course, this sail area refers to the cross sail area. In addition to the cross sail, all ships are also equipped with a set of triangular sails. The cross sail is used when the wind is downwind and can make the most of the downwind. The triangular sail is mainly used in the headwind area because the triangular sail is easy to make Z maneuvers and is suitable for sailing against the wind. When Columbus first explored America, he was also equipped with 2 sets of sails. As for the artillery, Draca also purchased a batch of Franco cannons from Portugal. These Franco cannons were 10-pound, 8-pound, and 6-pound, a total of 30 guns, all equipped on the 2 newly purchased carracks. After the new ships arrived, Marin immediately arranged for Columbus to familiarize himself with the ships. Then, the sailors were also adjusted. The local Frisian sailors led by Aben boarded the 2 new ships. As for the 2 130-ton warships captured by the Frisian Republic, half of them were used by the originally captured Frisian sailors, and the other half were used by sailors selected and trained from the newly recruited fishermen. In order to prevent these sailors from causing trouble, Marin not only selected honest sailors, but also left their families on Texel Island as hostages. Marin specially sent Kohler to tell the sailors clearly that if they died in the line of duty, their families would be treated well. If they betrayed, all their families would be hanged, even the children. In fact, these newly recruited Frisian sailors, the young men selected from the 80 fishermen led by Aben, were not well trained. However, they were honest and obedient. Unlike the other half of the sailors captured by the Frisian Republic, Marin was not very confident about them. Fortunately, the families of these people were also taken to the island, so there was no need to worry about them playing tricks. As for those whose families could not be taken to the island, they were excluded from this voyage. Moreover, these 80 Frisian sailors who stayed behind could not only operate sailboats, but also fire cannons. This was the biggest reason why Marin chose them. In this era, sailing on the sea was full of dangers. Although there were no powerful pirate groups like the English islands and the Barbary pirates, there were still many scattered pirates. 4 warships, with a total of 50 guns, could definitely crush all kinds of pirates as long as there were enough gunners. After all, the age of discovery had not yet taken off, and the scale of pirates was very small. Even if there were any, they were just some people who jumped off the ship and hacked people with knives, and were vulnerable to artillery fire. The only thing to watch out for is whether the Portuguese will turn against them and attack them. After all, Marin has touched the interests of the Portuguese this time. Even if Marin has the permission of the Pope, if the Portuguese do not care and destroy Marin's fleet at sea, Marin will have nowhere to complain. As long as the 4 ships are sunk, the Portuguese will have wiped out the urgency, and no one can say anything. Therefore, the 50 cannons on board were specifically designed to prevent the Portuguese from turning hostile. In addition, Marin also sent Kohler's most important assistant Draca on board to preside over the trade with the Indians. Under Kohler's hands-on teaching, Draca was quite good at calculations and had dealt with many people, so he had rich business experience. Then, Marin arranged to hire 2 Arabic translators in Portugal. These 2 people had been hanging out on the African coast for many years and knew how to speak Arabic. Moreover, they also knew Spanish. Coincidentally, Columbus also knew Spanish, so he could just direct them to negotiate with the chieftain of Malindi. During this era, there were many Arab colonies on the east coast of Africa. For example, Mombasa and Malindi were colonies controlled by Arabs, and the chiefs were all Arabs who spoke Arabic. For example, Majid, who originally piloted da Gama, was an Arab born in Oman. Having two translators who know Arabic also makes it easier to negotiate with the Arabs. Arabic is widely used. From Persia to the Atlantic coast of North Africa, Arabic is the common official language. Because Spain and Portugal face North Africa directly, they have fought many battles with the Arabs. Therefore, there are quite a few people in the two countries who know Arabic. Just like Spain, the Granada Sultanate, on the southern coast of Spain, established by the Arabs, was not destroyed by Spain until 1492. Columbus took the sailors and sailed the two new ships out to sea for a tour and found that they were of good quality. The sailors and gunners also practiced naval battles. In order to meet the needs of naval warfare, Marin had to send people to Antwerp to purchase a large amount of gunpowder and iron ball shells to meet the needs of naval artillery warfare. In addition, Marin ordered that all the stained glass artworks worth 10,000 gold coins brought back from Venice be moved onto the ship to be exchanged for spices with the Indians. Stained glass is a specialty of Venice. Although Indians have seen glass, they rarely see it. This is because it was not long ago that the Venetians invented stained glass. In addition, because the Ottoman Turks blocked the trade routes, the price of stained glass crafts in India is still quite expensive. As for Draka, as the person in charge of this trade, Marin gave him another 20,000 gold coins so that he could purchase spices. After all, it takes time to sell all the stained glass artworks, and it also takes time to purchase spices. If you wait until the products are sold out before purchasing spices, it will be a waste of time. Therefore, initial startup capital is also necessary. With the startup capital, the sale of colored glass and the purchase of spices can be carried out at the same time, which can improve the efficiency of work. Chapter 130 Setting Sail. Because time is tight and the Gama is about to set off, Marin also plans to speed up and set off early. In fact, Marin did get some data about the West African coast from the Portuguese, for example, where there were large freshwater estuaries that could replenish fresh water. You know, in that era, it was very difficult to preserve fresh water. Generally, a barrel of fresh water would start to stink after a few days, making it unbearable to drink. In order to combat the problem of stinking fresh water, later navigators invented the method of carrying strong liquor such as rum. Because strong liquor does not go bad when preserved. However, after the invention of citric acid, the preservation of fresh water has been greatly developed. Generally speaking, fresh water with citric acid added will take a long time to deteriorate. As for the method of dripping lemon juice, fresh lemons cannot be preserved for a long time. You can soak lemon leaves, but the soaking time won't be very long because the citric acid content in lemon leaves is low. For this reason, Marin thought about it and came up with a solution for the canned food. The earliest canning was actually to put the canned ingredients into glass canning bottles and plug them with corks. Then, the canning bottles were placed in a steamer to heat and kill all bacteria in the canning bottles. In this way, the canned food could be preserved for more than 10 months. Of course, in order to prevent air leakage, the cork was waxed around. Marin designed a large pot for the fleet to heat freshwater barrels, which were all oak barrels with airtight corks. Marin's method is to put the oak barrels filled with fresh water and corked tightly, then put them into a large pot and boil them. When they are hot, take them out and dry the outer wall of the barrels. As for the airtightness of the cork, Marin doesn't have enough wax to seal it. However, he can smear mud on the outside of the cork when it is wet. In this way, when the outside of the barrel and the cork are dry, the mud on the cork is also dry. The hardened soil can also play a great role in sealing air. Of course, when storing the bucket, pay attention to dryness. Because the mud will soften when it comes into contact with water. In this way, the fresh water stored in the oak barrel is basically the same as canned water. At most, the mud seal is not as good as the wax seal to seal the air. But this way, at least the fresh water can be kept from spoiling for a few months. However, considering the difficulty in obtaining fuel during the voyage, Marin invented the legendary solar cooker. Because there was no tinplate for reflection, there was no tinplate. Although Marin could make tinplate, the time was too tight, so Marin simply made a solar cooker with copper. The reflectivity of copper is also good, enough to heat the big pot. In this way, when sailing, you don't need to carry too much fuel. Of course, you still need to bring some fuel. Because in rainy weather, the solar cooker can't be used, and you still have to rely on ordinary fuel. So, I also put a batch of coal briquettes on the boat to heat food in rainy weather. In fact, the treatment of Marinong was much better than that of ordinary sailors. In the early days of the Great Voyage, in order to save space, fuel was rarely carried. Sailors usually ate ham, bacon and other foods that did not need to be heated. How could they drink hot food? Only when they had just left a supply coast would they pile up a batch of firewood cut from the mountains on land. During this period, the sailors could eat hot food for a while. When they reached the middle of the sea, they ate ham and bacon to maintain their lives. Columbus was amazed at the solar cooker, invented by Marin. The kidnapped Leonardo da Vinci was also amazed at the imagination of Marin. In addition, in order to prevent scurvy, Marin took out more than a dozen sacks of lemon leaves and gave them to Columbus. In addition, he required everyone, including Columbus, to soak lemon leaf fragments in boiling water and drink 3 cups every day. Of course, there were many people that Marin was not confident about wearing, such as the 2 Portuguese translators he hired. So, Marin kept a trick. In order to cover up the smell of lemon leaves, Marin mixed a lot of pepper, ginger powder and other spices into the lemon leaf fragments to mess up the smell of the lemon leaf fragments. Although the amount was small, the smell of the spices was strong, and it basically messed up the taste. Moreover, Marin secretly told Columbus and the other 3 captains that drinking water soaked with this herb every day could prevent scurvy. The other 3 didn't feel anything when they put them on, but Columbus was shocked. You know, during the voyage to discover America, a group of sailors died of scurvy. Therefore, Columbus had discovered that the chance of getting scurvy was very high during ocean voyages. Marin actually said that this herb could prevent scurvy, which made him a little suspicious. Captain Zorro, this is what my teacher Einstein taught me. My own fighting skills were also passed down from my teacher. Marin explained. Although Columbus still had some doubts in his heart, he said nothing. Moreover, if this herb could really prevent scurvy, it would be great for sailing. Before the 4 captains left, Marin repeatedly told them to just tell the sailors to drink the water soaked with this herb every day and not to tell them the secret that this herb can prevent scurvy. Otherwise, if Portugal and Spain knew that they had a way to deal with scurvy, they might team up to force him to hand over the secret recipe. In addition, Marin secretly gave Columbus a telescope. This telescope was very special. The glass used was high-grade colorless glass made in Venice. In fact, this kind of colorless glass was very rare in Venice. Last time, Marin bought a batch of high-grade colorless glass and commissioned different opticians to grind it into concave and convex lenses. After testing, this new telescope can fully see objects at the position of the horizon on the distant sea surface. Of course, you can only see what it is, but not the specific details. As for the specific distance, Marin has also tested it himself. In clear weather, standing on the sea level, you can see about 7 kilometers away. This distance is exactly the distance from your position to the horizon. However, if you stand on the ship's tower of the latest caravel, in the captain's room several meters high, you can see more than 20 kilometers away. Of course, in rainy weather, this distance will be shorter. The telescope was given to Columbus to help him track da Gama's fleet. Da Gama's fleet was still observed with the human eye, which could not compete with the telescope. As long as Columbus and his fleet were about 20 kilometers behind da Gama's fleet, it would be difficult for da Gama's sailors to find them. Even if they found them, they wanted to turn around and chase them, but the distance of 20 kilometers was enough for Columbus to react. Da Gama's carrack was not faster than the carrack ordered by Marin, so it was impossible to catch up. Although the caravel was faster, it was impossible to catch up, and it could not beat the carrack at all. Therefore, Columbus could safely follow da Gama. When da Gama first stopped in Mombasa, according to Marin's plan, Columbus should not stop but go directly north to Malindi. And he should tell the chief of Malindi that he is the enemy of Mombasa, and then trick Majid into being the navigator. Before leaving, Marin secretly gave Columbus a map of the outline of the African continent and a map of the Indian Ocean and the Arabian Sea selected from the standard world map of later generations. Sir, how did you get this map? Is it accurate? Columbus was shocked again. Doesn't the existence of this map mean that there have been ancient sages who have explored the route? Then why is he still exploring? Ahem, this is a route map that my teacher created by combining data from Portugal and nautical charts from the Ming Empire in the Far East. Ming Empire? Well, that empire had a navigator named Zheng He, who had been to India and the east coast of Africa. My teacher traveled all over the world and obtained this map in the east. Marin tried his best to deceive people. It was true that Zheng He had been to East Africa, and even if someone asked for confirmation, they would know this fact without worrying about being exposed. Columbus now calls himself Captain Zorro, and can no longer call himself Columbus. Because he has too many enemies. Those who died of syphilis blamed Columbus. In order to win over Columbus, Marin specially named one of the 2 caravels, Columbus, which touched Columbus very much. You know, exploring the real India is an absolutely big event. The ships involved in this voyage will also be famous forever. Columbus could no longer show his true face to others, otherwise he would be beaten to death. However, Marin named the ship Columbus, so others would not bother Marin. In this way, Columbus's name can once again be recorded in history with the discovery of the real India. For a navigator, this is the best compliment. You know, when Columbus explored the New World before, and when Vasco da Gama explored India this year, the names of the ships were basically saints. For example, Columbus's flagship Santa Maria, and Vasco da Gama's flagship San Gabriel. Columbus's name can be one of the 4 ships, which is definitely a great honor for Columbus. As for the other 3 ships, Marin did not name them according to common sense. The flagship was named Warrior of Varden, and the other 2 Kirk sailing ships were named Family of Hoffman and Mrs. Mary. After everything was ready, Columbus left her home with 4 ships, 160 sailors, and a full ship of cargo and ammunition, and went to Portugal to catch up with da Gama. Columbus was very confused about how Marin knew the departure date of da Gama, but Marin said that he got the information from a Jewish merchant and fooled him. Before leaving, Marin took the music master Da Vinci and several folk artists who could play musical instruments to play a soul-stirring piece of music at the dock, Conquering Paradise. Of course, in this era of powerful religious forces, Marin dared not use the name Conquering Paradise and changed it to Conquering the Ocean. This was originally used by later generations to commemorate Columbus' discovery of the New World, but now, Marin is using it to encourage Columbus to discover India. With the soul-stirring music of Conquering Paradise, Columbus and his sailors bid farewell to their loved ones and set out on a journey to conquer the Indian route. Chapter 131 Lowly Plan. After seeing off Columbus' fleet, Marin breathed a sigh of relief. After a long period of preparation, it was finally over. This voyage was of great significance to Marin. Of course, it was not about the profits from trade, but about the future. For example, when going to India this time, Marin specifically asked Draco to search for the seeds of 2 plants, soybeans and mung beans. Soybeans are the king of feed, and they are also an important source of vegetable oil, which is very important. Although this thing is produced in China, India borders China. Although the Qinghai-Tibet Plateau is a big obstacle, the 2 countries also have exchanges. For example, Indian sugarcane was introduced to China through Nanyang during the Zhou dynasty. Marin is not very familiar with the history of soybean dissemination, but it is estimated that it should have been introduced to India by the end of the 15th century. As long as there are soybeans, a large amount of vegetable oil can be produced, and excellent warhorse feed can be obtained. Whether it is civil affairs or military affairs, soybeans are extremely important strategic resources. As for mung beans, that's just a side thing. This thing originated from India, so you can definitely get it in India. Although it has no strategic value, Marin likes to eat bean sprouts made from mung beans. Moreover, drinking mung bean soup in summer seems to be good. Moreover, Indian saltpeter was much cheaper than European saltpeter. European saltpeter cost 10 pfennigs per pound. In India, it only cost 2 or 3 pfennigs, only slightly more expensive than Ming Dynasty saltpeter. As Europe entered the gun and cannon age, the demand for saltpeter would increase greatly, and with the soaring prices, the price of European saltpeter would also increase greatly. Marin will use the line-up shooting tactic in the future, which will definitely require a lot of gunpowder. And saltpeter is the main raw material of gunpowder and is indispensable. Therefore, the 2 most important things in India for Marin are soybeans and saltpeter. As for spices, they are just incidental. It is best to have them, but it doesn't matter if they are not. But soybeans and saltpeter are strategic materials and cannot be ignored. After finishing his trip to India, Marin finally had time to deal with Angela's problem. Angela is very important, that goes without saying. Marin also hopes to use Angela to replicate Lu Buwei's legend of a rare commodity is worth living. Therefore, Angela cannot be let go. How to get the most out of Angela? The best way is to marry her, as the son-in-law of the Rovere family. Wouldn't his status rise in a few years? By then, with the support of the Pope, Marin might not have to hang on to the emperor's tree. Maximilian I was not as generous as his descendants, and seemed to be rather stingy with the titles of nobility. Of course, this was not because Maximilian I was stingy, but because he was too shrewd, and he used the title of nobility, the only reward he could afford, to the extreme to attract people to work for him. As a modern man, Marin has independent thoughts. He has no interest in loyalty to the emperor or patriotism. As a strategic game player, Marin prefers to participate in the hegemony himself. Therefore, when Marin became strong enough, he would definitely leave Maximilian I and go it alone. However, it was not easy to go it alone. The old nobles did not accept him very much, and Maximilian I was poor and stingy. Therefore, Marin needed other external forces to help him. Then, the most powerful pope in European history, the Pope of War, Julius II, became a good choice for Marin. However, Julius II was not a fool and would not support Marin for no reason. Then, he would marry the Rovere family and marry his niece. Marin still didn't know that Angela was actually Julius II's illegitimate daughter, and the Pope would definitely stand on his side. As long as you are connected with the Pope, ordinary people will have to think twice before they can make a move on you. Maybe big countries like Britain and France can ignore the Pope. But those German princes are not strong enough to challenge the Holy See. Because the Holy See has a great influence in the German region. There are a lot of bishops in the German region, and the bishops need to be appointed by the Holy See. In order to obtain the position of bishop of the bishop state, some bishop candidates even spend a lot of money to bribe Rome in order to obtain the position of archbishop of the bishop state with the general status of princes. For example, Caesar is now the person who privately sells the position of archbishop of the German bishop state to Alexander. Whoever gives more gold coins will get the position of bishop. As long as he married Julius II's Rovere family, at least in the struggle for hegemony, those bishops would not be his enemies, at least they would be neutral, and they might even help him. The Roman Catholic Church has a great influence in Germany. There are several powerful bishop states near the Marin territory alone. For example, the Archbishop state of Utrecht, the Archbishop state of Bremen and the Archbishop state of Munster. These are all powerful princes. Although they have great autonomy, they need the approval of the Holy See when the bishops change. Without the approval of the Roman Catholic Church, it is impossible to become an archbishop. Because the bishops of the bishop states are not hereditary like the noble territories, but are appointed by the Holy See. Of course, when there were some powerful emperors in the Holy Roman Empire, these archbishops could also be appointed by the emperor. For example, Otto the Great. However, there were few strong emperors in the Holy Roman Empire. Therefore, after Charles IV issued the Golden Bull, the emperor's authority was greatly lost, and the Holy See had completely gained the upper hand in competing with the emperor for the right to appoint archbishops. Now, the appointment and removal of bishops in the episcopal states in Germany is decided by the Holy See. How powerful were these bishop states? Of the 7 electors of the empire, 3 were appointed by the Holy See, the Archbishop of Mainz, the Archbishop of Trier, and the Archbishop of Cologne. Although these bishoprics cannot be said to occupy half of Germany, their overall strength exceeds 1/3, which is no problem. Therefore, as long as he gets the support of the Pope, many bishops in Germany will stand on his side for not make things difficult for him. Even the emperor cannot do this. You know, the emperor's only allies now are the Swabian League and the Duke of Saxony. So, all in all, there are many advantages to marrying Angela. As for the obstacles to marriage, Marin saw nothing. You know, when Julius II was down and out, he had no time to care about his mistress Lucrezia and his little daughter Felice. In order to survive, Lucrezia, who was hiding in the countryside of Genoa, even married Felice, who was only 15 years old, to an unknown country landlord in 1498 in exchange for the other party's shelter. The other members of the Rovere family were also suppressed and hunted down by the Borgia family, and they had no face at all. At this time, the Rovere family was at its most destitute. Marin, a powerful baron, was willing to marry the daughter of the Rovere family, which was definitely a great honor. Of course, Marin did not dare to directly announce that he married a girl from the Rovere family. In that case, the Borgia family would have to mobilize the German archbishops to encircle and suppress him. Therefore, Angela had to be given a new identity. Fortunately, the communication methods in the Middle Ages were backward, so it was not difficult for Marin to make up a false identity for Angela. However, for the time being, the most important thing was to coax Angela, the beautiful Lolita, into marrying him before Julius II returned to Rome to succeed the Pope in 1503. Therefore, in order to achieve this small goal, Marin had to use all his tricks to deceive and pursue the beautiful lowly Angela. Marin himself is also very interested in the plan of training a beautiful little girl into a beautiful wife. After all, fighting and killing every day is boring and needs some adjustment.